Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Allison is perfect. I mean, she'd never tell you that. She's humble and perfect. She likes everyone. She even likes her untidy roommate's weird guinea pig. Allison, wait, are you texting and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Golf in the Mahoning Valley starts at Mill Creek Golf Course. Come out to the 36 beautiful hole design course by Donald Ross, and golf lessons are available by calling the team shop at 330-740-7112. Don't forget about family fun nights on Friday and Saturday evenings, a family of 4 with cart for only $25. Or visit the Wick Recreation Area and the lighted Par 3 course. Book your tee time today at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable. But how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Mark Means, host of By All Means, Tuesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
Mistakes early, and I wouldn't be surprised to see an early turnover or two by Philadelphia, or maybe a costly penalty or two, or a missed opportunity that Kansas City capitalizes on. If the Eagles avoid that, then this is likely going to be a much more balanced game, especially if Philadelphia establishes the run. Which brings me to Philly's line play. In the games I've seen the Eagles play this year, both their offensive and defensive line They have been the sort that seem to get stronger as the game goes on, or at least they start to impose their will more as the game goes on. So if the Eagles are still in this game late in the third quarter, that could set up a great fourth quarter with that strong Kansas City front against the Eagles. I still have a hunch that Philadelphia is going to make one or more key mistakes that Kansas City is going to capitalize on, and that's going to give the Chiefs an advantage that the Eagles won't be able to overcome. That's the most likely way that I think this game could go. But if the Eagles play flawlessly, then we might see this come down to the fourth quarter. I still favor Kansas City overall in that situation, but when it gets down to under 3 or 4 minutes and it's still undecided, that's when the margin for error really shrinks for both teams. And I brought up that 99% of the time, whoever makes the fewest mistakes during the game wins. That is especially true in the final minutes of the game if it's still undecided. The AFC Championship game this year was a great example of that. You look at Super Bowl V, it was a tipped pass, the Colts intercept, and then kick a game-winning field goal. A more recent example is Super Bowl 49, the Patriots and Seahawks. Malcolm Butler, a rookie, making the interception at the goal line, and the Patriots win. Now, forget about the play call for a second and what you think about that. The point that I'm making here is that there isn't much room for many mistakes for either team in situations when it's a one-score game with under 3 to 4 minutes left. There are several ways I can see Kansas City winning this game. The only 2 real ways I see Philadelphia winning is if they play near perfect football or Kansas City makes multiple mistakes, maybe puts 2 bad quarters of football together. Maybe they start turning the ball over. Maybe they miss a few tackles. Or perhaps they don't get points in the red zone and or fail to capitalize on some of Philadelphia's mistakes. And like I said last week, the closer Kansas City gets to scoring 24 points, I think that's going to reduce Philadelphia's chance to win, especially if Kansas City gets 31 or more. 17 or less, that's a target number I'm looking for the Eagles to hold Kansas City to for their best chance to win. Let's not forget a few things about this Kansas City team. You had a lot of people handing out trophies to the Bills early in the year. Then the Bengals won the regular season game at Kansas City, and it started to really look like Cincinnati was the team to beat. But there are just some teams, they seem to get tougher to beat in the postseason. And I'm thinking that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs fall into that category. Those Eli Manning-led New York Giants teams were like that when they won 2 Super Bowls over New England. And it happens in other sports too. In college basketball, Michigan State has been in that category, making the Final Four. I bring that up because, again, Kansas City's defense did not put up the stats that typical championship defenses put up. That somewhat worries me a bit in predicting them to win. And again, Philadelphia's defense has only given up 7 points in each playoff game. And that kind of playoff performance tends to signal a Super Bowl winner. But I think that the Chiefs just hit a higher level in the playoffs more often than not. There just seems to be another gear that this defense hits in the playoffs late in close games that they didn't hit in the regular season, especially with that late pass rush we saw against the Bengals. I think somebody in Kansas City's front seven, at least one player, is likely to be a real difference maker in this game. And I still give Kansas City the advantage here. And one last thing, and I didn't mention this last week, but I think it's been true for the past couple of years now. The AFC as a whole just seems to be the stronger conference right now. Going into the playoffs, I would have put both Cincinnati and Kansas City as having a better chance to win the Super Bowl than any of the NFC teams. You might remember me saying before the playoffs that the Bills are not at a Super Bowl level, at least not yet. And I would rank the Eagles above the Bills, but I would rank the Bills above the 49ers. So that's 3 out of what I see being the top 4 teams in the NFL coming from the AFC. I'm Jackson Michael. This is The Game Before the Money. Visit thegamebeforethemoney.com. Coming up, all kinds of Super Bowl winners, from the offensive line to the front office to the secondary. Dan Neal of the Denver Broncos, Upton Bell of the Baltimore Colts, and Super Bowl MVP Larry Brown of the Dallas.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports Report. I'm Charlie Pellett. The surge in legal betting across the country will make this year's NFL title match the most bet upon in history, but apps like DraftKings have not killed the traditional office Super Bowl pool. The number of adults who plan to take part in casual Super Bowl contests like office pools rose 71% this year to 13 million, according to a Morning Consult survey for the American Gaming Association, an industry group for casinos and gaming organizations. GM and Netflix are teaming up for a Super Bowl ad. Actor and comedian Will Ferrell will be driving different GM electric vehicles through different Netflix shows, including Bridgerton and Stranger Things, to announce that Netflix will feature electric vehicles in its original shows. Ads for this year's game are going for as much as $7 million for a 30-second spot. And that's the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report. I'm Charlie Pellett.
Ready for your next content binge? Check out www.believe.com. That's BLEAV for sports analysis, pop culture, health and wellness, and much more. Our network includes current and former pro athletes, Olympic gold medalists, award-winning actors and actresses, and many more. Find your next binge on Believe.com today. Do you believe?
Researchers long ago connected poor oral health to heart disease. A new study has found that gum disease, missing teeth, and poor brushing habits may also affect brain health. Preliminary research presented at the American Stroke Association's International Stroke Conference 2023 indicates that poor oral health may increase the risk of a stroke, according to study author Dr. Cyprien Riviere of the Yale School of Medicine.
Poor oral health is a modifiable risk factor and may lead to declines in brain health. So we need to be extra careful with our oral hygiene because it has implications beyond the mouth.
The study analyzed MRI scans for about 40,000 adults and found that those who were genetically prone to cavities, missing teeth, or other poor oral health symptoms had a higher burden of silent cerebrovascular disease and stroke. And there was also increased damage to the fine architecture of the brain. Presented by the American Heart Association.
Wake up calls! The Crown Prince of Georgia was arrested in Dallas.
I saw the outrage over this, and I think it's justified given that he murdered a whole family, right?
No.
Did he rob a bank? Did he carjack a family?
No,
what did he do?
Drunk in public.
Drunk in public, yeah.
And then he ran away, got tackled by the police.
Dallas cops did a better job of tackling Stetson Bennett.
So I guess far better than what TCU did.
Wake Up Call with Tony B and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
Football, the legends, the history, the here and now. Welcome back to The Game Before the Money with Jackson Michael.
Denver Broncos offensive lineman Dan Neal, part of 2 Super Bowl winning Denver Broncos teams with John Elway at quarterback. Here's Dan Neal sharing with us his Super Bowl memories and his look at Super Bowl 57. What do you see going into this Kansas City-Philadelphia matchup?
There's 1,000 ways to kind of dissect each game and each team. These are 2 pretty good football teams. Philly's been good all season, and Kansas City has been good the past 4 or 5 years and has maybe the best quarterback in the league. So I kind of would say I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, obviously it's going to come down to some of the cliche stuff, turnovers, mistakes, all that. But I think it's a pretty evenly matched team. I think anything can happen.
Both teams have really good lines on both sides of the ball. Can you kind of talk about that and what to look for, seeing one team maybe gaining an advantage in the line of scrimmage?
Jones is going to be something to see how the Eagles stop him. He obviously took over the AFC Championship game at the end. I mean, he's a hell of a player. The Eagles have a great pass rush, aggressive defense. Eagles' offensive line has been really good all year, and they are really good. I think better than the Chiefs' offensive line. But, the Chiefs do what they need to do, and really it's give Mahomes time to let Mahomes do what he does. They're not a great running team, but they're adequate. So, I mean, if you have to give a nod, I'm going to give the nod to the Eagles on both sides of the ball, but not by much.
Coming into your first Super Bowl, the Broncos played the Packers. At the time, the Packers had the stud defensive tackle in the league in Gilbert Brown. Do you remember what the strategy was in containing him?
He was a good player, but he kind of played into our system. Gilbert was more of a north and south stopper. He didn't like to go east and west, and we were an east and west running team. So we didn't worry too much about him. We felt pretty confident we could handle him, and I think we did in that game. You look at each player and kind of in a unit, and you kind of strategize what we need to do to be successful against this defensive unit. And if there's a really great player, you need to consider how you're going to handle that great player. And that kind of is the scheme of things. And I think there's good players all around. I don't think there's a player that, for me, if I'm either one of these teams and I say I have to do something totally different for this one player, like Aaron Donald's one of those guys. I don't see one of those guys on either side of the ball in this game.
Oh, really? Including Chris Jones then?
Chris Jones is the closest one, but I mean, he's a good player and he has his moments, but he's not every play. And again, he's a great player. This is by no means a knock on him, but he's not Aaron Donald good. I mean, literally, Aaron Donald will take over a game if you don't account for him.
Going back to your first Super Bowl a second and that experience, Elway had been there before. Did the veterans, did they kind of guide the younger players into what a Super Bowl experience was going to be like?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the intangibles that the teams understand that maybe sometimes the fans overlook. Yeah, and that's why I think the Chiefs have a little bit of advantage here is their main guy, Mahomes, has been here twice, right? He's won one, lost one. He knows this game. He's comfortable right now. You look over on the Eagles side of the ball, there's still a few holdovers from that World Championship team they have with Nick Foles, but there's a lot of turnover. And their main guy, and Hurts, has not played in this game before. And I can't express enough how different this game is start to finish. It is something you've never experienced. You can't even explain it. You have to experience to understand it. So that's advantage to the Chiefs. But again, there are enough veterans on that Eagles team that I think will set the example on here's what we do, here's how we go about this, here's what to expect. And really it's set the example. It's how they handle the week that the other guys, because all those young guys are watching them for guidance on what to do and expect.
Can you kind of talk about what the day before the Super Bowl is like?
This is how we did it in Denver, and I think most teams do it this way, and that is there's a 2-week ramp up to this game. And so the first week, we did a normal install game plan week like we were going to play on Sunday. And then we flew out to San Diego, I believe that Saturday, settled down, did the light stuff on Sunday. And then we repeated another game week that week before the game. We're creatures of habits. And so by doing the routine that we're so ingrained and used to, it kind of kept things normal. You're still in your routine. You're obviously in a hotel. There's a lot of differences, but you're in your routine, and it's a work week, and you know the expectations of what to do. So as far as like where are they today on Thursday, this is a Thursday work day for them. And then Saturday is, they get ready for that game. It'll be the same thing they do every Saturday all year. So it kind of keeps you from thinking too much about it and focusing on the routine of what you're used to.
On that first drive that you guys had the ball, you made a great play, pulling a guard, taking out a Falcons player. I think you called it the power play. And then Terrell Davis got a big gain. How important is that to get a play like that under your belt early in the game?
Oh, I think anything's positive. You always hear about, all right, we're going to start with these high percentage passes for the quarterback, get them in the rhythm. Well, it's not just a quarterback. I mean, they all got to get in the rhythm. They just focus on the quarterback, and linemen do too. And we script the first 20 plays, and a lot of teams do this. Here's the things we're going to go in this game looking to do, and you look at those first 4, 5, 10 plays and say, what are we going to do here? Are we doing empty backfield drop back, 7-yard drop back, chunking the ball where it's a lot of pressure on offensive linemen? Or are we running the ball? Are we doing play action, things that we like? So, yeah, you got to get in the flow too. And a lot of times that first 20 is those type of plays, high percentage, get in the flow for everybody. And again, it comes down to cliches, but in this type of game and really big games, it's, getting some points on that first drive is so critical.
And you guys control the line of scrimmage against Atlanta. Do you guys do that as a group? Is it individual matchups? How did that play out?
That's the thing about a good offensive line. There are no individual matchups. The 5 guys work together, and you try to double team as many of those guys as you can, even if it's for part of the play. So, sometimes a guy will have 2 different double teams, but he's helping 2 different guys. So it's a matter of how well we're kind of scheming here and controlling the line of scrimmage. Look, you could talk football all day long and talk about throwing the ball and, completion percentage and touchdowns, all that junk. If you go talk to a football coach and ask him what are the 2 most important things going to a football game, he'll tell you, stop the run, run the football. You got to do those 2 things. Really hard to win if you can't do either of those. And so both teams are really trying to take away that from each other. We were able to establish a running game. I know Terrell had over 100 yards that day. That was important. John had a big day as well. John, I think, was MVP of the game, but Terrell, he wouldn't have been MVP without the 100 yards on Terrell. That enabled him to throw the ball. So I always look for that. Who can get the ball going on the ground or who can stop it? That's big.
Obviously, winning is the best part of the Super Bowl experience, but what stands out to you when you think back to those, like a great moment, either on or off the field?
There's kind of 2 different things that I remember about the Super Bowl. The moment was afterwards holding the Lombardi Trophy. I've never touched it since, but holding it on the field after the game, and, that was pretty cool. Not everyone gets to do that, so I was very, very appreciative of that. That was the positive. Like I said, it's a different game. And what I mean by that, it's just, you go warm up, then you go back into the locker room, and then you have to wait an hour before you go back on it's everything's all screwed up, and you don't really understand it. And it kind of hit me that this is a different game than we were doing our warm ups, and then we're walking in the locker room, and in my way to the locker room was Kiss and all their makeup and glory. And I'm like, this is, get the hell out of my way, 1, 2, what the hell's going on? They were doing like one of the shows. There's like 30 different bands playing that day. But anyway, that's your realization. This is a completely different game, and your timing's all screwed up. You're sitting around. It really, and that's where the veterans were great. The veterans would say, "Guys, it's going to be 45 minutes. Relax. We got time." Because normally it's 10 minutes, but today's 45. So that all that plays a part.
I guess the halftime would have been a half an hour rather than 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's forever, and that's exactly what happens. The coaches will say it, but the players, the Elways, relax, take your seat here. We got a lot of time, keep loosen up, keep stretch, and that's who handles those differences. Because remember, going into this game, for us, it was like it's the 19th or 20th game of the season. So the other, 18 or 19, we did it a certain way. Well, now we're doing it differently in a really big game. And the fact that half the world or most of the world's watching you goes across your mind. So you kind of try to keep yourself relaxed and in your zone and understanding this is a regular game surrounded by a bunch of irregularities.
Well, Dan, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you think is important to convey about the Super Bowl?
I can't convey enough how fortunate each and every one of these players, win or lose, is to be able to experience it. It's, I'm close to 50, and it's one of the things I cherish most is just being able to be out there for one.
That's Dan Neal, a member of 2 Super Bowl winning Denver Broncos teams, started in the Super Bowl, hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, letting us know just how special of an opportunity it is just to play in that game, but also letting us know just how different that game is because of all the activities surrounding the game. Colts executive Upton Bell is going to talk about that some too here in a minute. I'm Jackson Michael. This is The Game Before the Money. Visit thegamebeforethemoney.com. and check out the Game Before the Money podcast.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-894-9190 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-894-9190. That's 800-894-9190. What do you have to lose? Call 800-894-9190. Again, 800-894-9190.
If you're missing the Cash In with Jason Page, then you're missing this. Dana White has this inexplicable hold on the sports universe that he can do whatever he wants. Maybe I just live in a world where, you know what? If you're high enough in power and you get caught on tape smacking your wife around, it's okay. They would show, Ray Rice dragging his then fiance or girlfriend into an elevator by her hair. They'll show that. But they're not going to show Dana White slapping his wife around. Yeah, you know what? We're ESPN. You can still air your fights on our ESPN Plus platform because God knows we need people to watch it and pay the subscription fees. We can't dare take UFC off it. We can't dare put UFC in a corner and say, you know what? If Dana White is still the face of your organization, we're not going to be in bed with you anymore. You can't do it if you're ESPN because you got no stones. The Cash In, weeknights at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Sports Map Radio.
Imagine learning about radio and being mentored by true radio professionals in real radio stations. Well, actually, you don't have to imagine because there's Radio Connection. Radio Connection gives you the opportunity to learn one-on-one and be mentored by radio pros. Plus, you don't have to worry about getting into a crazy amount of debt with school tuition either. Radio Connection keeps their tuition at much lower costs. To find out more info, visit radioconnection.com.
Just Saying It with Cole Thompson.
For the first time since the 1947, Chicago Bears will be picking #1 overall. Why is this important? Because the Bears understood the assignment. Two teams were vying for that #1 pick. One gets a win in the Houston Texans. They move now to #2. And the Bears who lost will be now controlling the draft board. This is so big for Chicago. And let me explain why. Because Chicago has its most important position figured out. Now that you don't have to select a quarterback, you can be greedy. There's so many teams inside that top 10 who need to find themselves a franchise caliber quarterback. To be able to now control the draft board, ask for immense value wherever you may find it, whether that be with the #5 pick, whether that be with the #7 pick, whatever you want to call it, you put yourself in a situation to where you can truly restart your franchise in a positive note.
Just Saying It. Weekdays from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. The Diehards.
Corbin Smith, friend of the show. How is Seattle Seahawks have won 9 games and are in the playoffs this year? How's it happened?
The biggest thing has been Geno Smith. They've put their confidence in him, and he's been extremely accurate, led the NFL in completion percentage, in the top 5 in passer rating, first in the NFC with 30 touchdown passes. Him being in the system now for a couple of years set him up for this success.
The Diehards, weeknights from 8 to 10 Eastern on the Sports Map Radio Network.
Football, the legends, the history, the here and now. Welcome back to the Game Before the Money with Jackson Michael.
With me now is Upton Bell, Director of Player Personnel for the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III and Super Bowl V. His father, Burt Bell, founded the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got some great insight and stories to share with us.
Let me start, before I get into my prediction and stuff, try and give you and your audience a look at what preparing for a Super Bowl is like and what the day of the game is like, Michael. I was involved in 2 Super Bowls. The one that we famously lost against the Jets in 1968 and then the one in 70 called the Blooper Bowl when we came back and beat Dallas. One of the things that people really have to understand about this is day of game is really difficult for a player. Now, in those days, the game started at 3:30, and our players already thought it was too long to wait to play. You know, you have to deal with your nerves. You have to deal with a different time of eating the pregame meal and getting taped. A lot of the guys go out to the stadium early. They walk around. They sit around. For the public, it's great. You know, they have this programming all day long, and people gather for parties. But for the player, it might be the tensest game of the year because nothing a player hates worse than having to wait. So in those days, I can remember the first one when we played against the Jets and Joe Willie Namath, 3:30 game, and the big news was Carol Rosenblum, our owner, was, of course, very close to the Kennedys, and Joe Kennedy was coming to the game with Teddy, and this and that, and Nixon was calling the locker room, and I'm saying, I'm not going to tell Shula, but Nixon wants to talk to him because Shula will kill me for that. But think about that. It was 3:30 then. Now it's 6:30, which is even worse. So you have to change your whole routine. But the other thing that you have to remember, too, is you warm up. You sit around. You warm up. You come out for the national anthem. And then you have the coin toss, which could take from here to eternity. Then you finally kick off. You play the first half. At the end of the first half, instead of being the normal 15 minutes, it's almost a half an hour. You've just finished a very tough first half, and now you go in and you're sitting in your locker room for essentially a half an hour. Then you come back out again, and you try to re-warm yourself up again. Not easy.
Do you think that experience with the Colts helped both Shula and Chuck Noll guide both the Dolphins and Steelers to Super Bowl victories?
Absolutely. I talked to Shula about it. And remember, Shula was only, for Super Bowl III against the Jets, Shula was only 36 years old. They talk about the young coaches today, and everything's changed completely. But when you're at 36, in spite of all the football that you've either played or coached, you're still 36. And I can remember before the Jets game, I remember saying to Shula, I said, you know what, I hope we are taking this game seriously. I know I'm looking at the film, it looks like the Jets have no chance against us. I said, but, this is the worst thing that could happen. I don't think, Michael, that he could ever convince our players how serious the Jets really were. Not only in Namath and Sauer and Maynard, but they had a great running game. I think that we were lulled into complacency, and then it was too late by that time in the game. So I think there were many lessons that Shula learned. And certainly the one about managing your team during the week. Namath was giving interviews at the swimming pool and threatening our guys. I mean, Namath was loose like he was Broadway Joe. Our guys just said, this is just another big loud mouth. And, of course, they learned differently.
So what is your perspective? What is your take on this Super Bowl?
I think it will be decided by 3 points. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side. I'm looking at it as I would as like a personnel director. And what I see is with the Eagles, both their offensive and defensive lines, where I believe the game is always won and lost, is really superior. There isn't a weak link on that offensive or defensive line. I think their running backs are really good. Look at all the yardage that was this year gained by their running backs. It's over 1,200 yards. So they can establish the run, and then you have Jalen Hurts running and passing, not proficient as a passer as we would normally look at, like a Patrick Mahomes, but he's such a threat running that it causes a problem for the defense. I think they're really evenly balanced on defense. They're as good as any team in the league. When I look at going into a Super Bowl, who's the best balanced team? Like last year, the Rams were a better balanced team than the Bengals. In the end, the Rams won because they really were a better, in my opinion, constructed team. And Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be throwing against a really balanced team, and he is going to, believe me when I tell you this, Kansas City has improved their offensive line. But they ain't seeing any Cincinnati pass rush this time. They're seeing, I think, one of the better pass rushes in football, period. The big question still is Patrick Mahomes still mobile enough to avoid a much more difficult rush than he saw against the Bengals? I would say that the Eagles are going to design their pass rush to keep him in the pocket. That doesn't say he can't be really dangerous. But the other thing you have to really consider is he was out of receivers at the end of that Cincinnati game. How good are those receivers right now? Have they recovered? Who knows? Another point, their running game. Their running game is questionable. They didn't run the ball very much against Cincinnati. They're going to have to run the ball this time. Now, they got Hilaire back, who I really liked a lot. He's very shifty. He can catch the ball. He can do a lot of things. How well he's recovered from his injuries, we really don't know. So there are a lot of ifs on Kansas City's side. And I know you have to say they've been there before. They've appeared 3 times. Even though the odds are very, very close, I think most people will pick Kansas City because of their experience of being there before and Mahomes. I don't feel that way.
Okay. And that's where we differ, because I see this as more of the Broncos-Panthers kind of Super Bowl matchup. You see it differently.
That doesn't mean I'll be right, but I'm looking at strictly in personnel matchups. Now, that doesn't totally account for Mahomes can be the miracle worker. That doesn't totally account for the idea that Jalen Hurts could turn out to be a pumpkin in this game. Although in the Eagles' case, they don't totally rely on him. Whereas in the Chiefs' case, Mahomes has got to have a good day. In the Eagles' case, all the pressure isn't on Jalen Hurts. If you're just asking me as a personnel director and a general manager and somebody who really watches the line play, which to me is the biggest indicator, then I would say to you, realistically, that the Eagles should win the game.
Upton, with you, your dad founded the Eagles. What do you think it would mean to him to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl?
Think about the day he died, which was in 1959, a hot October day. If you're going to go out in life, wouldn't you like to go out watching the 2 teams that you owned at one time, the Eagles that you founded, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you sold your Eagles to keep them going, and you end up equal partners with Art Rooney and the Steelers? Those 2 teams played that day. And on that day, just as Tommy McDonald was crossing the goal line with a touchdown pass from Norman Van Brocklin to win the game for the Eagles, at that moment, Burt Bell dropped dead. And you're saying to yourself, people won't believe this. It's fiction. Can't be. But it was. So I think even though he's commissioner and he never outwardly rooted for the Eagles and he never said anything to us, he had to be happy about that. You know, he gave every nickel he ever had. He actually went broke doing it. My mother saved it for him by giving him the money to buy it and, of course, keeping us going at the time. So I think in his heart he would be extremely happy for what happened to that franchise. And understanding that if he had lived 3 more days, you'd be sitting in the Eagles booth with me because he had made a deal to buy the team and quietly retire and back the old team that he loved. As I did this week, an interesting piece with ABC News in Philadelphia. There was a person who had a conversation with my brother before he died about Burt Bell and about the Eagles. And this person either contacted ABC News or they contacted him. And he said, as a last wish of my brother, he was taking an Eagles pennant out and putting it on my father's grave. So they actually went out there and they had me on the other line. And so at the ending of it, they asked me what I thought. And I said, Daddy, the Eagles by 3 and you can count on it.
Eagles by 3. That's Upton Bell's prediction for his late father, Burt Bell, who founded the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Jackson Michael. This is the game before the money. Coming up, Super Bowl MVP Larry Brown of the Dallas Cowboys.
Science proves quality sleep is vital to your mental, emotional, and physical health. The Sleep Number 360 smart bed senses your movements and automatically adjusts to help keep you both effortlessly comfortable. And it's temperature balancing, so you stay cool. So you're at your best for yourself and those you care about most. Life-changing sleep, only from Sleep Number. It's our ultimate Sleep Number event. Save 50% on the Sleep Number 360 limited edition smart bed, plus free home delivery when you add an adjustable base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
Milk, eggs, $42. Ma'am, you okay?
Need bucks? With Jackson Hewitt, don't wait weeks for the IRS to send your tax refund. Come in now for up to $3,500 with a no-interest, no-fee refund advance loan when you file your taxes. That's up to $3,500 today. Don't let high prices get you down. When every dollar matters, it matters who does your taxes. So get to Jackson Hewitt today. For eligible clients, loans by Republic Bank and Trust Company. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Wake up calls! Can I just give some advice? I don't know. This might be bad advice, but it might be good advice too. But it's just advice either way. If you see a wide receiver jump up and down screaming for a hurry-up offense early in a game, throw the red flag. Trust me. You could lose a timeout, or you could get the ball back on fourth down on an incomplete pass. Devontae Smith jumps early in the game. You've probably seen it. Reaches with one hand, pulls the ball.
Beautiful catch.
It's gorgeous. It's incredible, and it's fourth down, and it's bold, and yes, oh my God, this is great. The stadium's losing its mind. There's only one person that knows if he caught it or not, and that person is screaming for the snap. He's getting up, screaming for the team to hurry up.
Just trying to catch the Niners off guard.
Yeah, if you're Kyle Shanahan, get some evidence that maybe, just maybe, he knew he didn't catch
Wake Up Call with Tony B and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
Wake up calls. I just told you I had been caught stealing in my head all morning.
Yep.
And you went, why not? Sure. Get in my head more.
That wasn't a request? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a request.
I'm going to be singing this all day. I looked it up. 1990.
Yeah, that kind of hurts.
That really hurts.
Wake Up Call with Tony B and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
If you're missing the cash in with Jason Page, then you're missing this.
There's going to be resentment towards Lamar Jackson. There's no getting around it. I believe the Ravens made him a fair contract offer in the offseason. They'd offered him $250 million contract, $133 million of which was guaranteed. Lamar Jackson said, I don't find your contract appeasing. I want more. Okay, fine. You decide you're going to play it out. You get hurt 10 games into the season. You miss the final month plus. Everybody thinks you got a week-to-week injury. Instead, you don't come back at all. It's week 19 of the NFL season. Nobody's 100%. He could have forced his way onto the field if he had wanted to, and he didn't. Well, if he had gotten his contract, he would have played. Yes, and that's an indictment on him. Lamar Jackson quit on this team because he didn't get paid.
The Cash In, weeknights at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Sports Map Radio.
What makes it a Super Sunday? The commercials? Nope. Halftime show? Not even close. For bettors, it's the game inside the game. From the coin flip to the Gatorade bath, the action is nonstop. Download your free Big Game Betting Guide from VSiN now for expert analysis from the Sports Betting Network. Download your free 2023 Big Game Betting Guide from VSiN at sportsmapradio.com. That's sportsmapradio.com.
Football, the legends, the history, the here and now. Welcome back to the game before the money with Jackson Michael.
Larry Brown of the Dallas Cowboys won the Most Valuable Player award in Super Bowl 30. The Cowboys defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-17. Larry Brown had 2 interceptions in the second half, including one in the fourth quarter, when the Steelers were driving and only trailing by 3 points. Both of Brown's interceptions led to touchdowns, and helped Dallas win their third Super Bowl in 4 years. The Cowboys won 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy Johnson as their head coach. Barry Switzer was hired after the Cowboys had won 2 straight Super Bowls, a confusing situation to this day. We'll hear Larry Brown discuss that. He's also going to share stories about other great moments in his career. Brown grew up in Los Angeles. He was drafted by the Cowboys in the 12th round of the 1991 NFL Draft, and he ended up starting for the team that season. Imagine that. They don't even have a 12th round anymore. They called Brock Purdy Mr. Irrelevant at the end of the 7th round. And here's Larry Brown ending up starting in 3 Super Bowls and was named Super Bowl MVP. That's a great story there. Here's the Game Before the Money interview with Larry Brown. Larry, you were a 12th round pick. Coming out, nobody expects a 12th round pick to make the team.
And I'd be on the team, that's right.
You're a starter. How did that come about, do you think?
Well, you worked hard, the fact is, when I got there, I knew I had to do well on special teams, and that was going to be my primary thing, and I did well on special teams, and when I got an opportunity to play, you got to produce. And so I felt that I could make the team. The other thing that helped me, I was the only defensive back that got drafted that year, even though I was a 12th round pick. They didn't take any other defensive backs, and I think that also helped me as well.
And then in 91, the wild card game against Chicago, you got a pick off of Harbaugh. Can you walk us through that, please?
Yeah, we knew that Harbaugh was going to take some shots. The Bears were a really good team back then, and we went up to Soldier Field. The weather was a mess, and they're going to take their shots. And, they're going to take their shots at a young guy. So when I got that pick, it brought a lot of confidence to me. Unfortunately, we went on the next week and lost to Detroit in the 2nd round, but that game there really gave us the identity of what we thought we could be. And that Chicago game helped me as a player because they had some great guys on that team.
And that helped you going into the 92 playoffs?
Absolutely, because remember, in 92, 91, 2 years prior, they're 1-15. So no one thinks that you're going to go from 1-15 to deep in the playoffs to Super Bowl. So, but that game there, I think we realized that we could be good. Even though we lost to Detroit, we kind of started to believe, okay, we got something here. And they added some pieces, and the rest is history.
And then you played San Francisco in the NFC Championship 3 times. I guess you would have been covering John Taylor.
Both, everybody. I was on Jerry sometime, John Taylor sometime. So there was some great matchup. Those teams are incredible teams. Those games are, and we've always felt those championship games, whoever won that game was going to win the Super Bowl. So there were Super Bowls before Super Bowls. So they were just as electric, they were just as exciting, and we felt that if we can get past the 49ers, we'd win the whole thing. And that every time we beat the 49ers to get there, we won it. Whenever they beat us to get there, they won it. So it ended up working out that way.
The first Super Bowl against Buffalo, you had an interception, I think in the 2nd quarter.
I did.
Frank Reich.
Frank Reich, that's right. So again, they're going to test the young guys. So you have to be prepared for it. And as a defensive back, you want to be tested. You can't get interceptions unless they throw at you. So some guys are afraid, but you really want them to throw at you. If you're not afraid to make plays, go make plays and they'll stop throwing at you.
And you had walked us through the 2nd interception you made in the Super Bowl. Can you talk about that again, where you jumped the slant route?
Yeah,
Was that something you saw in film?
The first interception, Charles Haley was sacking the quarterback as he was throwing the ball, redirected arm, ball got away from him, and that was a gift. The second one was a blitz check, and I beat the receiver to the spot and cut him off. And so I just jumped it. I went for it. So either I was going to make a play or I was going to get beat. And I was fortunate enough to make a play, and it helped affect the game.
And you knew from where the receiver lined up?
Absolutely. They only really had 2 blitz checks at that time, either a stop route or a slant, and based on their splits, you could tell which one it was. So it was somewhat predictable at that time. So I noticed that, and I took the chance.
And then how surprised were you when you found out that Coach Johnson was leaving, and how did you find out?
Shocked. Nobody knew. We found out at the press conference like everyone else did. So it was total shock, and we didn't know how, obviously we don't deal with Jerry. Jerry's the owner, but it was unexpected and it was shocking for all of us.
And is there anything else special about those Cowboys teams that you want to convey to everybody? Or
I think that had they kept Jimmy Johnson together, we probably would have won another 3 if him and Jerry stayed together. When we won those 3 that we did, We were the youngest team in football. And I think Jimmy would have kept those teams together. He would have found a way. And I think when Mr. Jones came in and kind of started running things, he slowly tore those teams apart. But I think Jimmy would have found a way to keep everybody together.
And do you guys keep in touch now still?
We're still friends. Everybody's gotten kids. We're all Al Bundys, married with children now. So, yeah.
And you said your son plays for UCLA.
My son plays football at UCLA. So Emmett's son plays at Stanford. So we got kids all over and just excited to be supporting our kids.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Larry. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. A lot of great stuff in that interview, and I really appreciate the time Larry Brown gave me. He was going from one venue to another when we spoke, so special thanks to him and his team at Corona. About that Cowboys coaching change, that's something that's really overlooked about those Cowboys. They still made 2 straight NFC championships and won a Super Bowl after that abrupt coaching change. Here's what's overlooked. Players have to adjust to new coaches. And in the case of Johnson and Switzer, they had 2 drastically different leadership styles. And the Cowboys were able to adjust to that. They were that good. And most of all, that committed to winning. If you could imagine a boss you've had great success with all of a sudden leaves, and then someone else comes in with a completely different approach to the business, that's a really difficult adjustment. I'm not sure how many teams, how many groups of individuals could have stayed performing at that high of a level with both a huge change and distractions surrounding the shift from Jimmy Johnson to Barry Switzer. You can hear more about that from Larry Brown's teammate, Chad Hennings, on the Game Before the Money podcast. That is on episode number 37 of the Game Before the Money podcast. It really has been a pleasure sharing insight and history with all of you out there this pro and college football season. I really appreciate all you listeners out there, each and every one of you. And I'd like to say thank you to all the guests that have been on this show. And thanks to Sports Map Radio, Craig Larson, and all the engineers who ran the show through the board, brought it to the airwaves. Please be sure to visit thegamebeforethemoney.com. You can sign up for the newsletter there, and you can stay informed about what's next, when I'll be on the air again. You can also learn about Their Game, Their Times, an HBCU football oral history that's being put together by The Game Before the Money, featuring interviews with a lot of HBCU football legends such as Elvin Bethea, James Harris, Larry Little, Art Shell, Robert Brazil, Willie Lanier, a lot of Hall of Famers who got their start at HBCUs. And of course, it's at thegamebeforethemoney.com where you can keep up with all the great things that the Game Before the...
The Youngstown Phantoms and Cedar Rapids Rough Riders are taking it outside. Thursday, February 23rd at 6:05, it's the USHL Cleveland Classic presented by Winmark from First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. It's the first outdoor game in Phantoms history, and we need you to be there. Tickets are just $25. Call the Phantoms box office at 330-747-PUCK for tickets or more information. That's 330-747-7825 or visit youngstownphantoms.com.
Hiya, Queen of All Knowledge here, reminding you, creeps out there on the internet hack, scam, and trick savvy cyber users every day, but we can fight back. It's as easy as IC3. If you're a victim of online crime, don't give up. Visit IC3, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Your tips help the FBI track down cyber criminals around the world. Report your crime to www.ic3.gov today.
This is Everett Fitzhugh, the radio voice of the NHL Seattle Kraken, and you're listening to the home of the Youngstown Phantoms, Western Reserve Radio.
The Game Before the Money podcast. Farewell for now.
This week at Macy's, find Valentine's Day gifts for all your loves, like fragrance gift sets they'll adore. Plus, take an extra 15% off with your coupon or Macy's card. On top of beautiful jewelry finds, now 35 to 70% off. And 25% off decadent chocolate from Godiva. Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift card services and fees. More at Macys.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
Dancing crew, trip for two, nailed the final interview. Game with Doug, brand new mug. Come here, kid, give me a hug. The more you want to do, the more we want to do. New COVID-19 boosters designed for recent Omicron variants are now available. Learn about eligibility and schedule a free updated booster today at vaccines.gov. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Just saying it with Cole Thompson.
At the quarterback role positionally, there is not a second better player in the NFL than Josh Allen. At this point moving forward, I cannot put Joe Burrow past number 2 when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL. He is the second best quarterback in the NFL, right behind Patrick Mahomes, and the drop-off between him and Josh Allen is close, but it really isn't. There's a lot of things that when you look at Joe Burrow that just screams franchise-caliber quarterback and screams eliteness. But here's the biggest thing, confidence. He plays to his strengths and he eliminates the weaknesses. That's what great quarterback play is, and that's what great quarterback play does. And Joe Burrow falls into that category. And now you're seeing Cincinnati be a viable threat every single year. He's not wrong. The Super Bowl window for Cincinnati is wide open so long as number 1, he is healthy, and number 2, he's playing with this confidence level.
Just saying it. Weekdays from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m.
If you're missing the cash in with Jason Page, then you're missing this.
No matter what Zach Wilson does, in the mind of Robert Saleh, he can do no wrong. As a talent evaluator, you cannot objectively look at Zach Wilson and think this is a kid that's the future of your franchise. I don't know what the Jets are thinking right now. Zach Wilson's not a good quarterback.
The Cash In, weeknights at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Sports Map Radio.
Did you know you can go to a trade school college that has you learning as an apprentice in a real radio station, culinary kitchen, film studio, or in a recording studio? Stay out of debt and out of a boring college classroom and learn on the job in the real world. The Radio Connection puts you in a real radio station. The Recording Connection trains you in a real recording studio. The Film Connection has you learning under a real filmmaker. And CASA has you learning one-on-one in a real restaurant. It's your life. Amplify it now and learn as an apprentice in a unique way to get a career as a broadcaster, podcaster, chef, music producer, or filmmaker. Just visit one of our sites, radioconnection.com, recordingconnection.com, filmconnection.com, or casaschools.com. Or call 1-865-413-5724. That's 1-865-413-5724.
Wake up, Cole!
It's official, Tony. Boston Dynamics equals Skynet.
Every time you do a Boston Dynamics story, I get more and more petrified.
There's a new video of a two-legged robot just doing things that a two-legged robot shouldn't do on its own.
No.
Watching this video, the only thought going through my mind is that, you know what? The countdown in human existence started right there.
Exactly.
That's done.
Tick.
Wake up call with Tony D and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge, a part of the Sports Map Radio Network.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You make sure his toys don't have any sharp edges. You taught her what to do when the smoke alarm goes off. You do so much to keep your child safe. But are you using the right car seat for your child? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Protect your child's future at every stage of life. For information on the right seat for your child, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are important. Should I go through it again?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open, don't speak with your mouth full, keep your elbows off the table. Share your things, play nice, and generally treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit tunein2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Golf in the Mahoning Valley starts at Mill Creek Golf Course. Mill Creek Golf Course is the host venue for the AJGA PGA Hope Program, 8 high school teams, and 2 collegiate teams. Mill Creek Golf Course is your Callaway certified golf club fitting facility. It was named the PGA of America's National Merchandiser of the Year for a public facility 2022. Book your tee time at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio, take 1.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
What if I told you that a tornado was going to happen tomorrow, right where you live? That it would touch down at exactly 3:17 p.m., and I told you the exact path it would take. You would, of course, prepare. You would talk with your loved ones, and you'd make a plan today. It's true, I can't tell you a tornado will strike tomorrow, but shouldn't you have a plan anyway?